What's up, guys? We're back with another Mythic Legion's Arethyr wave review, taking a look at a new little demon guy. We've got MALEPHAR on deck today. So this is one of the commanders of Arethyr's demon horde, and he's blue, so he's a little bit different from the norm. And I'm pretty excited to take a look at this guy because he is very much a 2.0 style goblin figure. He does, of course, come on our standard Mythic Legion style packaging, so you've got figure there in the window, you've got a bio card for him on the side panel, and then the back of the box has that stellar new artwork with Arethyr in all of his glory, our cross-sell for the other figures in the wave, and then a write-up for the current state of the story. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull this little guy out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our MALEPHAR figure. So this guy is pretty unique in this wave because he's one of the actual smaller style bodies. So a very 2.0 style of figure when it comes to being on that actual goblin body. So we've got the Hellfire Goblin, but he's a dwarf body. This guy's actually on a legit goblin body. So he is a little bit different in that regard. He's as small, or smaller really, than the Hellfire Goblin, but he's a different construction than that guy. So there's at least a little bit something different to talk about with this figure. So let's get started, see what he can do, see how he moves around. So you've got a head that can look up slightly. It's not super far, but at the same time his head is oriented weird, so it basically him looking straight up anyway. He goes down only about that far. He's got kind of a long face that juts out forward, so it only goes so far. You've got some tilt there, and then you've got full rotation. You do have to watch out. He's got that spiked gorget that sits around his neck, so it does kind of get in the way. Arms go out at the shoulders. They, of course, rotate all the way around. We've got our single rotating elbow, so 90 degrees with rotation. You've got forearm swivel. You've got wrist swivel and hinges, of course. My wrists are a little bit loose on this guy. They're not so bad that it's causing a problem, but it's a little bit looser than the rest of the wave. Being on a 2.0 body, he does have a diaphragm cut, so he goes backwards slightly, and then he goes forwards a little bit, so you've got that bobble action, and then you've got tilt side to side, and then you more importantly have rotation up there, just to get another added layer of twist. He does, of course, have the peg at the waist, so he goes backwards fully about this far, and he goes forward about that far, especially with that top crunch. Tilt side to side, and then you can also twist at that waist peg down there. So it gives you two different directions to twist. Haven't had to talk about one of these guys in a little while. It's kind of different for me. Legs go out about that far. They kick forward pretty much all the way, but you do have to watch all the pieces all over the place. Like this guy right here on mine wants to keep popping out when I kick those legs forward. They go backwards. You do have your thigh twist. You've got your single-jointed rotating knee again. He does have these sort of flared armor pieces, so you have to watch when you're twisting them. And then you've got rotation at the ankle. You've got some serious rocker. I mean, that's like his ankle's basically broken there, right? And then you've got hinges down there at his hooves, because, of course, this guy has hooves on this 2.0 frame, so they're a little bit different. So he does move around, I mean, exactly as you would expect something on this style of body to move. If you've messed with any of the smaller goblins, you know exactly what's going on here. So he does have a little bit of added movement at the torso, but he's still very familiar territory when it comes to legions. He just happens to be on a slightly more slender body style. Now, when it comes to the aesthetics on this figure, this is, again, very familiar territory. If you have any familiarity with the little goblins from the Advent of Decay wave, then you know what to expect here, because he's very basic in that regard. He is mostly just a goblin, which isn't a bad thing because, I mean, on any given day, goblins are up there in my top two, now I'm not going to say factions, but style or race of character. Skeletons are still a favorite for me, but goblins are a pretty close second on most days, and this guy is a lot of goblin, but of course he does have some new stuff. He does have the hooves, so we've got these tiny hooves on this little body, which I like. They are surprisingly stable. I'm not having any issues posing him or keeping him upright. They just sort of plant him on the ground, and they look good. They do have kind of a long profile, which I think is helping them, just to give him a little bit of something to sort of fall back on. So I do really like that. The overall color scheme is very sort of demonic and just dark in nature, so he's mostly just done up in this very pitted and worn gunmetal-y black color that has a light kind of almost like glittery overspray to it. Of course, he does have some little accents here and there. So you've got some of like the silver rivets that just help to bring out a little bit of detail. He catches the light a little bit better. And then you've got buckles and things like that down here on his calves. He does have a loincloth piece that is done up in kind of like that faux leather look with tons of silver rivets on it. So it kind of catches your eye, stands out a little bit better. But in general, he's on a very dark suit of armor. He has one of my favorite gorgets when it comes to this line, that huge spiked collar, which sits around his tiny head. So I do like that. It very much frames him up nicely. And then you do have some gold accents on the inside. So the chainmail underneath the dark armor is actually this bright, lustrous gold. There's not a lot of it, but when you see it, it just sort of jumps out. So you've got it there, like, you know, in the armpits. You've got it there in the elbow area, and then on the backs of the knees here as well. So it's not much, but it's a little thing that will just make him sort of pop when you sort of get him in the right pose. And then, of course, he does have a brand new head sculpt, which is obviously, outside of maybe, you know, one of the things we're going to talk about when we get to accessories, one of the key components of this guy, because it is just a gnarly, nasty little demon guy. And I really like this head sculpt. He's not my favorite demon head at this point because Belphegor is just too good, but he's probably up there for one of the better looking heads in the line at this point. I think they did a fantastic job on him. He's got that kind of snarling smile, no pupils, which I always like on bad guys, and then he's got these gnarly horns that come out of his head. They're similar to Belphegor's, but they're not exactly the same. They're not as big for one, but they are a little bit different, just at a much smaller scale. And he's also got these humongous ears that are basically dwarfed by the horns. You almost can't see them because they're so covered. But I do like it, and I really like the color scheme. So if you want to mix and match stuff, you can definitely put this guy, you know, with Azar and Zazar and stuff like that, and just have him sort of sit alongside them, because he's going to go well with those guys, being a demonic type of character with this very bright, sort of vibrant head sculpt. So it looks really good. Paint is nicely applied, and I just like the style here. It works really well, and it very much clashes with this very dark armor. Now, as far as accessories goes, this little guy is pretty well stocked, and there are a number of ways to change this figure up. You can make it into an entirely non-demon figure if you so choose. So let's assume right now that he doesn't have wings on him. You've got this extra head sculpt, which just makes him into like a small knight. So some sort of a goblin knight, if you want to go that route. We've seen this helmet before. We've seen these sort of like War Duke style of whatever you want to call them, adornments on the helmet. But this color scheme in particular works really well, especially in conjunction with the pauldron. So there's like sort of a purpley inlay color there with the gold accents. You've got those big black flourishes on the side of the helmet. You don't have to use those if you want. You know, you can take them out. They pop in, and you can take them right out. And then you've got just some of the more simple 2.0 style pauldrons, but they work really well in this particular color scheme. I actually really like this. This is another instance where I only got one of this particular figure because I only did the all-in. That's generally how I do it. But I could see myself getting another one of these just to have it in a non-demon configuration. So you've got that option. But if you want to keep him as a demon, we do have wings. So, you know, in this instance, I'm using the back adapter because, of course, the pauldrons are in there. If you don't want to have the pauldrons on, you can put the wings in the pauldron holes. But you've got these really small, nasty, gnarly-looking blue wings that very much fit the color scheme of this character. You've got one articulation point on them, so they do have this little winglet on the top that swivels around, and then of course they rotate within the holes on the back adapter or the back itself, and then they hinge as well. So they're really tiny, but they definitely work alongside this, you know, kind of little impish frame. This guy does have one other little thing that may confuse folks at first, because I know it did confuse me. He's got a tail. And he's got a little butt flap back here. So it's back here. It actually sits, take that off, I suppose. It actually sits underneath everything. So there's a hole back here. Kids, look away. We've got just this little piece. So this is different than what we're used to seeing on figures that have tails. So, you know, like Purplor, for example, it's just a ball peg. This guy has this little cover, which when you're looking straight at it, like you can't really see it's there. You have to sort of look up, I suppose. So this is just a non-swiveling tail really. Well, it's not ball jointed. It still rotates, but you peg it in there and then you can sort of rotate it up in there, which is kind of cool. So you've got another option. So you can have him, you know, fully demoned out with the demon head, with the demon wings, with the demon tail, or you can have a combination where you've got, you know, maybe some grunts that look like this with the combination of those parts, or just keep him in a demon form, or keep him in just a sort of goblin knight form. So you've got a lot of options, and this stuff does look really good. This is a static piece. It's not a bendy wire or anything like that, so you're not going to be going crazy with its posing, but it's kind of already pre-dynamically posed, I suppose. Now, as far as the rest of the stuff this guy comes with, we've got the trident here. So I think this came with Calavius, maybe, is the one I'm thinking of right off the top of my head. So it's really big. I mean, this thing's humongous, and it very much fits kind of like the impish nature of this character. So you've got that. We've got the axe, and this is the one that often comes with like a skull that sits on top of this, but this is just a standard sort of copper axe with a silver blade. And then we've got a short sword, silver blade with a copper handle. Of course, this guy does come with all the back adapters. One is on him. You've got the others, and then you've got the ever-present strap. So a lot of stuff with this little guy, a lot of ways to change it up. I mean, there's a number of different configurations right out of the gate with this thing. So if you got a bunch of them, you can really go to town with changing them up, or you can just have an army or legion or whatever you want to do when it comes to army building this guy. So it's cool as a single figure, but works really well as an army builder too. So yeah, this guy is really good. I mean, I'm a big fan of the 2.0 style figures, and I mean, it has been a little while since we got one. My memory could be a little fuzzy at this point because, you know, legions have been kind of on the back burner for so long. But it's nice to get one of these smaller guys because I do like the goblins, and despite the fact that this isn't a goblin, it very much reminds me of one. It moves really well, it looks fantastic, tons of great accessories, and if you're more into the kit bashing and the changing up aspect of legions than I am, you're really going to like this one because, again, there's a bunch of different options. I mean, full demon, full knight, a mix of both, you know, have a bunch of grunts with MALEPHAR being kind of your commander, which is kind of his story anyway, so it works really well, not to mention the fact we get wings with this guy, we get a tail, a whole bunch of really cool parts and pieces that work really nicely to form just a nice looking figure. So that's going to do it for this look at the Mythic Legions Arethyr Wave MALEPHAR. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.